One of the great things about the game of golf these days is that young players have access to so much opportunity of great instruction, personal instruction, and now even fancy electronic toys. A whole lot better than playing Xbox, right?
That's right.
Kevin Smeltz from the IJGA joins us. He's the director of instruction there. Kevin, you guys have TrackMan. We've talked about that, I think, a bit in the past, but now you're unveiling a little something extra that the kids at your golf academy have access to. Tell us a little bit about, what is this, golf biodynamics?
Yeah, it's a 3D system created by a gentleman by the name Dr. Rob Neal. Dr. Neal's a PhD in biomechanics. He's worked with the German national team, the Danish national team, lots of institutes of sport. And he's developed some software. There's some other systems out there. The great thing about this one is it measures the swing in what's called 6 degrees of freedom. So you can see any angle, how the pelvis is moving, upper body's moving, wrist angles. You can see basically thousands of combinations of whatever you want. But obviously the trick is the science and the art, right? There's the science to it and then there's the art. So the information's more for the instructor to give the best possible solution so the player doesn't have to think about that stuff, even actually less than before.
So when we talk about, you know, the things you can read and see, this is a device where sensors are hooked up to the body and you get readings on, like you just said, different parts of the body moving in different ways. How would you interpret that information for a student in terms of how they might be hitting it, either hitting big hooks, hitting big blocks, things like that?
Right, so you're all, you know, I mean, so if someone's shoulder turns flat, you know, the club's going to tend to go inside. It might come down too far from the inside. So with this, you can measure, right? You're not just guessing. You're not thinking, oh, your shoulder turn could be a little steeper. You could say, how steep? You can measure that, you know, so you're not guessing. I liken it to kind of an MRI. So you've got, you know, your doctor that kind of says, how you feeling? An X-ray and then an MRI. So video camera 2D would be X-ray and then this would be MRI. So you just more specific information, not to make it more complicated, to make it easier because you're not guessing.
Okay, the nice thing about making it easier for the student is the student really doesn't, you can show it to them, but you're the one doing the evaluating of this, maybe not so much the student, to try to free them up a little bit?
Yeah, that's right. Like I say, I mean, it's not to make things more complicated, it's to make things easier because you're not guessing, you know more specifically what they need to do. And the whole idea is that you can shortcut things, not Band-Aids, right? Don't believe in Band-Aids, but shortcut things. So instead of taking a few months to get something, it might take a couple weeks. And the whole goal is to do what? Spend more time on the course, less time on the range trying to figure things out.
And something like this, Kevin, helps somebody with not only when the sensors are measuring the way their body is moving, you know, either their pelvis or their shoulders, like you said, but the speed with which it's happening, because so many times people swing, especially the juniors, they swing so hard and it kind of throws off their sequence and timing and so on.
Right, and that's when you get down to the core of it. Kind of to go back to one of your last questions, how does that affect the other stuff? Is you can see the sequence, how the energy is transferred from the hips to the shoulders to the arm to the club, and that's the be-all end-all, right? If you take Ernie Els and Jim Furyk and you look at what's called their kinematic sequence or kinetic sequence, how they're transferring energy, if you look at how that's graphed, they look exactly the same, believe it or not. It looks identical.
Even though their swings look that much different.
You can't tell them apart.
It's something to see. The graph where all the lines are and the curves are, it's all very similar.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool. So the students really, like you said, they're not going to be looking at it and getting as much info out of it, obviously, as the teacher does.
Correct, and that's the key point. I mean, that's the real thing. You can make it as complicated as you want, but the instructor's job is to make it simpler. But the more information I can have, the simpler I can make it to them because I can shortcut.
An instructor making it simpler.
There's
a novel idea.
I like that.
Go figure,
I'll
right?
tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring Kevin over here for the last part of the show, and we're going to talk a little bit about how he makes things simpler for his tour players.
That'll be fantastic.
That should be good.
We'll do that.